What is the most unexpected thing you've seen live on TV? A plane flying into a New York skyscraper. The Space Shuttle Challenger exploding into the Florida sky. I can't find a clip of it anywhere. But it was Thanksgiving morning in Los Angeles. And a news team went to surprise a family in need with a full Thanksgiving dinner. They showed up to the house. And I really think they went to the wrong place. The person at the door looked confused by the name the reporter was giving them. But they were live. And I'm sure the reporter was freaking out, so she shoved her way into the home with the camera crew and a bunch of people with food. They're all standing in the living room. And the reporter is telling this bewildered woman about what food they brought. Then the woman takes a picture off the mantle and starts crying, telling the reporter her baby died. The reporter was trying to turn the conversation back to the surprise dinner. But the woman only wanted to talk and show pictures of her dead baby. It was the cringiest thing I've ever seen on live TV. I was watching football, soccer, a few years ago, and the referee stopped play for a foul. The slow-mo replay showed the fouling player grab the other player's shorts as he stepped across him and used them to try to stop his momentum. The shorts stretched a long way, exposing his penis, which then proceeded to flap around in slow-mo for about 5 seconds, whilst the commentators pretended it wasn't happening. The O.J. Simpson Bronco chase. They interrupted the NBA playoffs to show it live instead of the game. It was surreal. The reporter standing at a 45-degree angle, holding onto the street sign for dear life in a rainstorm as he was reporting. And the two dudes casually walking past, not leaning whatsoever and without difficulty. In the UK, a TV personality and her son who is disabled were on a live TV show. From what I recall, the topic being discussed was online bullying. When her son was asked about what to say to these bullies, his response was, "Hello you cunts." Absolute classic British TV right there. When I was a kid, I was watching the evening news. A politician came to the microphone with a manila envelope, said hello to everyone, then reached into the envelope and pulled out a revolver and put it under his chin and blew his head off. On live TV. A Formula 1 driver hitting a wall at Imola and attempts being made to resuscitate him on the track. They weren't successful. Roland Ratzenberger died during qualifying, and things continued to get out of control as crew. Drivers and spectators were injured over the weekend, and Ayrton Senna died during the race. Motor racing is obviously not 100% safe, but the number of incidents and 2 fatalities over the course of a single event was astonishing. It really was like the track was cursed. Al Capone's vault had nothing in it. Okay, so in Southern California we love our high-speed pursuits. They're regularly crazy. And every news program will switch from whatever they were going to talk about to the pursuit. It's fantastic entertainment. But sometime in the 90s, some guy being chased by the cops stopped on a freeway overpass. He got out of his car and had a shotgun in his hands. He didn't aim it at the cops, so they just set up a perimeter. And every news station waited and watched. Zoomed in closely. For what was sure to be a spectacular conclusion. The guy suddenly aimed at his own face and fired. Right on live TV. I heard the eye in the sky screaming, "Pull back! Pull back!" at the cameraman once the shotgun guy started to aim. But they were not quick enough. Everyone got to see this guy's red mist live. Everyone at school was talking about it the next day. Pretty sure a whole lot of new live news rules were put in place after that. I was there when Kanye West said on a live charity event that George Bush didn't like black people. Mike Myers was speechless. Edit to say. Now that I think about it. I was there when he interrupted Taylor Swift. too. I had the same look on my face as I did during the George Bush incident. I wasn't able to sleep one night. So I flipped on the television. Just in time to see the 2011 tsunami make landfall in Japan. I was not expecting that. 9/11 second. And the Challenger breaking apart third, although I was able to see that from our patio. Went back inside for the details. Besides the Will Smith slap. That fly landing on Mike Pence's head. And it stayed on for like 2 minutes. I remember my dad and I just burst into laughter as soon as that happened. Anderson Silva's leg snapping like a twig. Janet Jackson's areola. Edit. This did not warrant referral to the Reddit crisis line. Really feeling the love. Y'all. I remember in college turning on the TV and seeing most of a building collapsed and learning it was the FBI building in OK City that had been bombed. A few years later, on almost the same day, watching the live coverage of the Columbine school shooting. I also remember watching the end of the Waco siege a couple years before the OK City bombing. All of these stick in my head because they all happened on the day of or before my sister's birthday, 4/20. For a few years it was like, shit, what else is going to happen on this date? Back in the late 90s there was a short-lived sport called slam ball. Essentially, basketball played on trampolines. It was awesome. People were dunking from 12 feet in the air. They would cross the court in 3 bounces. The tactics were amazing. I had no interest in sports at the time, but this shit was fun to watch. Like the best exhibition game you've ever seen. Except one time this dude snapped his foot off. Like, off. The most recent thing I can remember is basically watching Damar Hamlin die on a football field and then watching a multitude of commentators talk about if the game should continue. Hostage situation during the news. The news presenter was talking when an armed man walked in and took them hostage. It was wild. Christian Eriksen dying. And then being revived. Live shots of the chest compressions were a poor broadcasting choice. Indiana Pacers players fighting Detroit Pistons fans. Edit. I remember I was in Florida on a trip to Disney World with family. My cousin and I wanted to watch SportsCenter, but it wasn't on until after this game. We figured might as well watch the end of this. Ironically, my dad and uncle got in a huge argument beforehand. When they saw this on TV they just stopped arguing and watched. They were in shock. SNL. Theodore Geisel had died and they mentioned that in their faux news report. Theodore Geisel was Dr. Seuss. The comedian at the newscaster's desk mentioned this and the audience went dead quiet. This was a real, no, don't joke around about this moment. However, and now, to read his eulogy. The Reverend Jesse Jackson. Rev. Jackson had a copy of Green Eggs and Ham and read it like he was preaching from the pulpit. That rising and lowering of the voice is called hooping. He read it with great energy and drive as if the Lord himself came down and commanded that this book be read. It was the best thing I ever saw on TV. It was funny and yet respectful. One time I was flipping through channels and nothing was on. Snow Mobile Freestyle on the Winter X Games caught my eye for no good reason. Then the guy is in the air either trying to backflip or he just rotates too far on a big jump. The Snow Mobile lands what looks like directly on his chest. I'm shocked thinking surely he wasn't going to survive. I can't recall what the normal announcers were saying or if they cut to something less dramatic. But then the sideline reporter type woman said she interviewed the athlete while he was being taken away and he felt like he just woke up from the longest dream ever. So I was optimistic since he was able to speak. Maybe even walk off under his own power. But I looked it up over the next day or two and he died in the hospital. That line from his interview still sticks with me. I watched Randy Johnson hitting a fucking dove mid-air with a fastball. Well, there are a lot of things listed here. Most of which are tragedies or just horrible acts. So, I'm going to list something different yet positive. November 3rd, 2016. CUBSWIN. ... The January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. In 2015, a reporter and her cameraman were gunned down on live TV by a former employee of the station. Still get sick to my stomach when I think about it. So there was some kind of finale of the Swedish TV show Robinson. I think the American equivalent is Survivor or something like that. Basically it's a reality game show where a group of people are put in the wilderness and put through mild, controlled survival tasks. And every week somebody gets voted out. Anyway, the finale was for some reason I can't remember. In a studio and involved every participant of the whole season. And they were all about to vote for who was going to be ultimate winner that year. When they voted they were to walk up to the camera, show the name on their vote and put it into the box. But this one guy, who had been a bit goofy on the actual show, turned up in a full tux and painted blue in the face. He walks up to the camera and shows how he just eats his own vote before he yanks the winner trophy off its pedestal and runs out. Stumbling over a table or some shit in the process. It was wild. Edit. So it wasn't exactly as I recalled it. It was 20 years ago, mind you. Good stuff start at about 1 o'clock. CNN showing the live bombings overhead during Desert Storm was pretty nutty. The headbutt during the 2006 World Cup final. I already knew Italy would win when that happened. Just a couple of weeks ago. Dude jumping out of a stolen cop car he was driving at 45 miles per hour. Smacking his head on the asphalt because physics. Killing himself on live TV. Mike Tyson biting Evander Holyfield's ear. I was watching a live Nye broadcast. And someone in the crowd was heckling. Kathy Griffin whipped around and yelled, "Hey! I don't come to your job," and knocked the CKS out of your mouth. It was glorious. The killing of Lee Harvey Oswald. Christian Eriksen legit collapsing and dying on a soccer pitch only to be revived and make the most epic comeback the following season. World Series earthquake was wild. O.J. Simpson's white Ford Bronco being pursued, slowly, by LAPD. I was 6 years old, but I remember watching the chase on all these TV monitors in Radio Shack with my stepdad. Tiananmen Square protests. And then the military massacre. That shit was on the news every day. Watching that was my first real awareness of Chinese politics and society. The second plane and the Challenger. Tommy Cooper collapsing, dying on stage and everyone laughing cuz they thought it was part of the show. Then him being dragged backwards through the curtain. As a young kid at the time it stuck with me for life that has. Lee Harvey Oswald being shot. Saw a politician take a dildo to the face. Sable ripping off Jacqueline's top during a PPV. We were already hyped to the ceiling just for that night, but seeing that blew our preteen minds. We didn't get to watch the next one though. It may seem small, but watching Mike Tyson bite Evander Holyfield was horrifying. Mike had been through so much and done so much, and you just knew how lost he was. It was profound to me that one of the strongest people I'd ever seen so physically imposing could just fall apart. I was 14 and it was scary. I've never forgotten. Turned on the TV. Breaking news. Michael Jackson has passed away. I was dumbfounded. In the Netherlands we have a yearly tradition to celebrate the sitting king, queen. Don't ask me why, and there will be a whole parade with performances and a lot of people there. This will be live on TV and a lot of people watch it from home. In 2009 there was this guy that managed to get past the security line with his car and he drove into a huge group of people and kids in front of the royal family. 8 people died because of it. December 6, 1989. I grew up in Montreal. I was 14 years old and home from school that day for some reason. Watching on the news as they carried the bodies of 14 women, I didn't know yet it was all women. Murdered by a misogynistic psychopath, out of the University of Montreal. Where my dad was working that day as a professor. I frantically called my dad's office over and over. Desperate for a response. And got none. I later learned the École Polytechnique building, where the massacre occurred, was a separate building from my father's. But at that moment I didn't know. As a kid, I was a gun fanatic. This was due to my uncle. A retired U.S. Army LT. Col. Who took me shooting every summer when we visited him in the States. Where the rest our family lived. I was even a junior member of the NRA. My 12th birthday present was a .22 rifle. I didn't love guns so much after that day. I've been a fierce gun control supporter ever since. I guess that's called growing up. I was watching a September 11th documentary for the 20th anniversary and they showed a video of a woman getting executed by the Taliban without warning. It wasn't blurred but was a long shot so it was hard to see anyway. Definitely not prepared for that. The 2004 Boxing Day Indian Ocean tsunami. I remember the few hours afterwards being in my parents' room with the news on. And there was this Rolodex type thing in the corner of the screen that kept going up. It was the death toll numbers. Michael Jackson's performance of Earth Song at the 1996 Brit Awards was very peculiar. With Michael being portrayed as some weird messianic figure surrounded by children. It was all the more memorable by Jarvis Cocker invading stage in protest. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future. Subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.